afternoon, Stitching Post family. Just in case you were busy today and you couldn't make it by our historic 40 years of Stitching Post bed turning history and samples between my family and our customers and our lovely staff that's worked for us over the years. But I'm going to start off by talking about my great-grandmother. She came here in 1890 in a covered wagon. She was 12 years old. She even wrote a diary and had 4 little brothers. And her precious Nellie Blue was born after they arrived here. But I'm going to show you her picture. Hang on. Here we are. This is a Mary Amanda Berger Peoples. And that's her beautiful wedding dress that she made. And I'm going to flip through here. And this is the Woodward County Families book. My great uncle was on the Historical Commission. But if you look at the cute little blonde with the braids, that's my nanny. And her mom, dad, and her 2 brothers. They're in Tangier, Oklahoma. But her mother was a territorial school teacher, which meant she was a teacher in a one-room schoolhouse. And if they were lucky, they had wood floors and at least a potbelly stove. And they used to heat the room up with cow chips. And you ask, how do I know this? Because of a 1959 article that was written about territorial schools in early Oklahoma in 1959 in the Woodward Journal. And they were asking each one of the territorial school teachers why they began teaching. And my grandmother's response was, of course, that she wanted to buy those cute calicos that were 10 cents a yard to make all her clothes and her quilts. So let's take a look at some of Mary's work. Now these beautiful pillowcases are that I got from Judy Howard at Buckboard Quilts when they were trying to raise money for the Peppercorn Ranch. Aren't they cute? So that's provided our pillows for our bed today. Charity, can you see me? Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm going to hold this up so everybody can see the quilt, and then I'll fold them up as we go. As we're taking down the bed. This was all hand embroidered by my grandmother. And she started this in, let me see if I can hold this up. Here we go, here she is. And she started this in 1931. And this is my mom's. And she was born in about 1946. I'm going to fold these up. And so these are this was my great-grandmother's quilts, and my mom and my aunt presented me with these because they thought people who cut up little pieces of fabric and put them back together were crazy. So I guess I'm crazy. Anyway, quilts are very important things, and bed turnings are not new. They came around about the 1800s because women quilted all winter, and they would get together in the spring and they would lay out their quilt tops and show what they've been working on. And so we're still doing, and so this is not an original idea for me. Women have been doing bed turnings for hundreds of years, and I got this from the Oklahoma Quilt Guild and some of the other quilt guilds in the area. This is a bear claw. I think this is pretty. Look at the bright pinks. Now I'm going to put these back home in a cedar chest because they're getting kind of worn. Now this is her log cabin. This is quite old and very well loved. And no, they didn't put batting in them, but let me show. Can you see the hand quilting? Her rows aren't so straight. But I'm going to show you my favorite one. Sorry, I'm going to fold these up because I have to take them home. Now the fun part. Now aren't you going to ask me where I got my bed? There's a there's a Goodwill around the corner. And I even got it on half price day, and it's solid oak. So we're all fighting over who gets the bed. But this one's beautiful. basket in the corner. But this is hand embroidered, and it's got her name in Tangier, Oklahoma. This one was made about 1915, I think, is what I was told. But look at and this is definitely feed sack material. When I was in the 8th grade, I went to teaching white and fell in love with this beautiful fabric. And my mother was so mad because it looked like feed sack. She wasn't crazy about feed sack dresses. But this one is hand-tied. Look at it. Isn't it beautiful? Look at the back. And it's made up of different fabrics. You see this a lot in all my older quilts that I have. Even up to the 30s and 40s. This quilt was special. This one was my grandmother's. Oops. And I'll show those off in a minute. This was my grandmother's, and it used to lay on the bed in the back bedroom. Well, so was the picture of her grandparents, Furman and Margaret. And well, let's just say none of us would sleep in the back bedroom. Nanny would always give us a choice. You want to sleep in here with me, or do you want to sleep in the other bedroom? And we're like, we'd look at that old scary people and go, we'll sleep with you. And I'm not sure everybody was asking me the pattern, but this is just beautiful. Can you see it, Sherry? This is my favorite. But I'm going to show the quilting on it. Can you see the feathers? Aren't they gorgeous? Now I'm probably going to get in trouble for this next quilt, because I told my ex-mother-in-law I didn't have any more Grandma Whistler's quilts. But this is Justin's quilt, and his daddy used to work under his car underneath the ground with it. But I saved it, and it's Justin's, and he lets me keep it because I have proper storage for that stuff. But I love this quilt because it really represents how a lot of women quilt. They tie tack, and I remember being at their house and seeing the piles of cut up double knit. But this is one of their quilts. But look at the back, it's tied and everything. Even the binding is made out of scraps. Charity, do you want to tell them about this next quilt? This one hung up in the West store. Matter of fact, I had Judy Howard come in and look at it because I wanted to make sure it was probably from the 30s and 40s. This is a Baptist fan, and I bought this half price at an antique mall that was going out in Bethany, and the lady was from Bethany that made it. And what's so cool about this one is we joked that this lady her husband was a bootlegger, and her job was to taste the bathtub gin and watch for the revenuers. Well, she would be bored and quilt in between taste testing, and unfortunately, I don't think she got her blocks very straight. Or she was really scared of the devil. We're not quite sure. But we used to have this up hanging in the West store just because it was such a fun quilt to see. Now the next quilt is beautiful. I bought this one from Judy Howard, I believe at the State Fair, to help raise money for Peppercorn Ranch. But this was made by Miss Ann Miller out of Edmond. She passed away from Alzheimer's. But her and her mother went to cosmetology school in the late 60s. And she loved poodles, and she drove a yellow 51 Buick. And her favorite was her favorite thing. But I have a write-up on who actually made this. But look at those bright, beautiful colors. I love that spider web. Anyway, here, Cherry, take a picture of the lady who made it. And her family, she was from Edmond.
I can't read that.
Oh, it's okay. Oh, that's right. Facebook will reverse it. But look at the back. Isn't it pretty? It's hard to believe a quilt this old, the fabric is still this bright. I have to load these up and take them home, so that's why we're full of them. Now this one time I was going to training in Dallas, and Emma just kept telling me I had to stop and visit the quilt shop that used to be in Gainesville. Well, I did visit it. It was a very nice shop, but there was an antique store right next door. And while I was looking for blue willow dishes, I ran across this poor little quilt which I felt sorry for. It had been slashed and marked down to $9.95, and I had to take it home. But it is from Texas, and I took it home because, well, I felt sorry for it. And it's been with me ever since. Now the next one is gorgeous. This is a grandmother's garden. Look at the back of this quilt. Isn't it cool? I love this fabric. This is a grandmother's garden. This one actually belonged to Judy Howard's husband's grandmother, from what the card sounds, but it's grandmother's garden. And I absolutely just love that green. I think it's absolutely beautiful. Here, I'll hold it up for you. Look at the scalloped edges. But Cherry, zoom in on this quilting. What amazes me is how straight this lady hand quilted. Isn't that amazing? That really is amazing. Now, you're about to see another one of my quilts that I felt sorry for. And I bought this one. They had an outdoor sale at the Antique Britain Mall across the street, and I was looking for dishes, of course, and I looked down in the box, and there sat this poor little quilt, and I asked the lady how much she wanted for it. $2. Well, I had no cash, so I had to go dig out $2 worth of change out of my car to be able to pay for the $2 quilt. But this one is all hand-pieced. Mary wants to do it. But let me flip it over so you can see the hand quilt. Look at this fabric. You can tell where it came from. But look at the hand sewing that put it together. Kind of cool. But anyway, there was a lady at the state fair, and what she did was she repurposed and sold vintage tops online. She looked at me and goes, "How much did you pay for that?" I could have got $100 on eBay. But I had it at the state fair showing everybody all week because I was proud of my $2 quilt top. And this is sheets that this is made out of for the case of the stripping. I'll put this one aside because Mary says she wants to take it and fix it. All right. Oh, now this one is a beauty. This is the family jewels here. My dad bought this from a lady in Tuttle in 1978, and we had a matching jacket. And this is double knit, and Josephine quilted it for me on our big 26-head long arm that we used to sell. But this, you can tell here that where Dad and Denise used it as a drop cloth when they painted the store. This quilt has history. My little brother walked in and goes, "I know that quilt," because it used to be on my parents' bed for many years. And this bad boy will keep you warm. In fact, it's back with our muslin we used to sell. Oh, carry all these home. Yeah, fold that one. Now, this quilt's really special. I'm kind of ornery because one of the ladies who worked for me told me that you couldn't make a t-shirt quilt without foundation. Well, me being me, yes you can. I don't recommend it because the lady that told me that was right. But I got to tell you another story about this quilt. This is made up of t-shirts from Robert and me and a friend of Angela's. Well, these t-shirts were thrown in there. And our Project Linus coordinator at the time actually did a TV spot on Fox 25 about Project Linus. And the cameraman knelt down, and all you can see through that whole report is that pot leaf sticking out like a sore thumb, and that's all I about died. But that's a true story about this quilt. It's even been on TV. One other thing about this quilt that's so fun is that the Yukon sewing teacher used to make sure that I always had it hanging up in the booth so that when her kids did a scavenger hunt at the Winter Quilt Show, they could always find a t-shirt quilt. Now some of these quilts are ones that we've had as samples. And these beautiful quilts were made by a lady named Joyce Wright. These Indian designs are made by a former PE design teacher named Anita O'Keefe. She's now a champion Yorkie raiser. But Miss Joyce was wonderful. We loved her. She would walk in on a bad day and give us a big hug and go, "What's the matter, honey? You having a rough day?" And when we're always having those long, hard days, we sure miss her hugs. But she made these for me. And this is actually a panel that I wanted to make look pieced. And we made her do that stippling stitch. And she told me, "Don't ever make me do that again." And we never did. But she made a lot of the samples in early days. And she has been buying her machines from my dad since he worked for Mr. Huey and sold nail coat. Now this quilt was designed by a local quilt artist named Victoria Craig, and she made this for us, and she used to be the quilt artist in our booth, and her and Sarah would get into it all the time. It was kind of fun. But isn't it beautiful? Look what she did with the variegated thread. I always think that's one of my favorite things about this quilt. And she gave this to me. Now, one of the things that we've been doing over the last few years is we have a booth theme. And Miss Sarah, that we lost to cancer a few years ago, that used to work for us and help us start the original Moore store, we always have a booth theme every year. And this is one made by Miss Kathy. She's with the Project Linus ladies. And this is a Anita Good design quilt. Isn't it sweet? It's one of, everybody just loved this when we had the birds, the bees, and the butterflies theme. Now this quilt's really special. Pretty much back when this was made, it's about 2008, pretty much every girl that worked for me, including myself, worked on it. But I had the fun of getting to go to New York and go to Mode. So this is $22 yard silk, and these guys are $2.25 rayon. But this was a beautiful quilt, and the other fabrics from Hobby Lobby. And this is Sasha Co-Designs by OESD. But this was, we made this quilt when the Quattro came out. Now this quilt's really fun. This is the chicken quilt. We love the chicken quilt. And my neighbor, Miss Phyllis, made this. She pieced the top it's from a 1993 pattern out of a quilting magazine. Anyway, she was claiming that nobody wanted this top. So Robert looked at it and goes, "Oh, that's cool." Gave her $100 for it. And one of our staff quilted it with a single stitch Janome. But all those chickens want that little bitty worm down there. They don't want all that single stitch flowers that we put in there. Now this quilt was made by Miss Emma and Miss Maddie. And it is Sewing Revolutions, Kim Goldup Graham. And it's just beautiful. And if you want this lettering, you're going to have to come buy a Janome embroidery machine. Matter of fact, we just happen to have some on sale during our demonstration with Miss Kay on Monday. But isn't it beautiful? We just love the colors. That is so pretty. And that was one of our layer cakes that we used to sell at the Britain store. And it was quilted by Miss Candy. She did custom quilting with her HQ long arm. Quilt, these last two quilts are our theme. And the year that Miss Sarah passed away, we did a fairy quilt theme in honor of Miss Sarah. And this is thread painted by our own Linda Crook, and it's also pieced and quilted by Nancy Wood, who works for us at the West store. Isn't it beautiful? One of my favorite quilts. And then this is very special. This is, matter of fact, I bought these at the Savage Quilter. This is Fairy Frost, and I fell in love with the fairies. And this was quilted and made for me by Miss Janet Hart in honor of our good friend Sarah, who we miss very much. Anyway, this is Robin Hill for, hey Robin, what's sewing down at the post for the Stitching Post 40th year anniversary of our bed turning. But what's so special about all these quilts, they all come with a story. And not only do they come with a story, but they're about people. And we've had the most fun conversations around the old bed today, sharing the quilts with all the ladies. They asked questions. We talked about foundation piecing for just any subject that come up. But I heard some great stories about people's families, and I'm so grateful for letting me come into your home. Once again, this is Robin Hill saying, hey Robin, what's on down at the post? And join us every day for our grand opening so you have a chance to win all those great prizes.